What's going on, growers? It's James Prigioni coming to you live from Jersey. It's November 13th today, a little windy, but still a nice day, and me and Tuck have a fun one for you. We're going to share with you what happens when you plant an apple tree from seed and show you what it looks like after 9 years. Let's go! 9 years ago, when I first started planting this food forest, one of my dreams was to have my own variety of apple. I wanted to plant my own apple tree from seed so I could have like a kind that no one else could have. It'd be like almost like a signature on the garden. So what I first started to do, years ago when I was beginning gardening, was I would collect all the seeds of all the fruit and things I would eat, things like peaches, apples, and pears, and just collect all of them. I would also take all different kinds of seeds like annuals and stuff, because I was so into natural farming at the time, and I would put all these seeds into a little cup and then sow them into like a small area, forming like a little polyculture of plants. Within the seeds I would sow, I would always put apple seeds in there from various apples I had eaten over time, save the seeds, and then I would just like stick them in that section. Over time, a number of them would come up, and then when they were young, I would kind of like guide them along. In some sections, I had like 3 or 4 apple trees growing in just a small area. Then as time would progress, I would choose the tree that did the best out of the ones that I had. I always like overplanting. For instance, I'd like having 3 small apple trees to choose from and then, pick the best one of those, as opposed to only having 1 apple tree and kind of just being stuck with that one. To my extreme surprise and excitement, only a few years after I planted my apple trees from seed, I had one that actually flowered in the spring. When I saw the flowers in the spring, I was like again, so excited. I couldn't believe it, because typically apples take, a good amount of time from seed to actually fruit. So with only a couple years in and I saw those flowers, that whole summer I felt like a kid on Christmas, like waiting to open his presents, but I was just waiting to find out whether or not that apple was it going to be good, if it was going to be delicious, and if it was going to be terrible. So at that time I only had like 4 apple trees of the same age, and this was my only one to actually have flowers on it. Well, that fall it did set fruit, and it's been setting fruit ever since. I'm not gonna lie, at first I was a bit discouraged seeing the size of the apples. When I saw them forming, I was like, oh man, these are going to be like kind of small apples. So I was like a bit upset at first. Then when the September came around and they looked like they were starting to get ripe, I tried one and it was like starchy. So I was like, again, kind of a little upset in a way. But what I didn't realize was at this time of the year, in like mid-November, this is when these apples are ripe. I was just trying to eat them a little early. So then after I did actually get a taste of them, that's the reason why this tree is still here. What you're looking at here is the Prigioni apple. No one else in the world can get this variety. The only way they can get it is if they get it from me. This is kind of like mine and nature's like combined signature on the garden, letting everyone know that this is our garden. So let's take a bite and taste this baby. Again, not huge apples, but incredible flavor. It starts with like a little spritiness, and then it has that beautiful sweet tones at the end. Not astringent, not starchy or anything, and you can see the color. It's like a little bit tan on the inside. That's when they're really good. When I first tried to have them the first couple years, or the first year, I was eating when they were white on the inside. They weren't ripe, and it just did not have the flavor. These though, so good. So yes, you can grow your own apple tree from seed, and this is what will happen if you do. You'll get apples, but the question is, should you actually grow your own apple tree? If you do want to, there's a few things, really important things that you need to take into account. The first one is that the greatest thing about growing your own apple tree from seeds is also the worst thing about it, and that is that you never know what you're going to get. So there are so many genetics mixed into the apple seed that it doesn't produce true to seed. For instance, if you take Honeycrisp apple seeds and plant them in the ground, you're not going to get a Honeycrisp apple. You might get an apple that tastes terrible and is tiny, but you also could get a huge apple. So that's kind of like the gamble and one of the fun parts about it. Also, another thing to think about is when you plant an apple tree from seed, that apple tree is going to be a full-size tree. So this thing will get like 30, maybe 40 feet tall, as opposed to the trees that we buy and order from nurseries. For instance, let me bring you over to a Honeycrisp apple. So this Honeycrisp apple tree is grafted onto a dwarf rootstock, meaning that because this rootstock is dwarf, this tree won't get bigger than like 5 or 6 feet tall. So that's pretty convenient. A tree that won't get bigger than 5 or 6 feet tall, but still gets absolutely loaded with fruit only after about 4 years. So if you don't have a lot of space, you might want to put something in like a dwarf apple tree instead of one from seed. But what you could do is, if you have your own apple tree from seed and you just don't have the space, you could graft that the one from seed onto one of your trees that already have a dwarf or semi-dwarf fruit stock. This way the tree doesn't get huge, but you can still try to get some fruit from your one from seed. Another thing to note is that when I planted my apple seeds in the ground, I found it easier to just direct sow them, allowing nature to perform that winterization process that is necessary. Then those seeds could just sprout in that location, and it was more convenient for the growth because they could just stick their taproot into the ground and not have to be like disturbed for any transplanting or anything. Out of the 4 apple trees that I had growing, only one of them, the Prigioni apple, ended up producing good fruit for me. One of the other ones did end up producing fruit, but it was so small and it wasn't sweet, so I just found that it really wasn't worth it to have. Another one, apple tree, I still actually do have. It just hasn't produced fruit for me yet, and it's just over here. And then the 4th one I have, that thing didn't produce fruit for me, and it was in a bad location, so I actually had to move it. But one of the reasons I think that the Prigioni apple produced fruit for me early was possibly because of the extreme way that I pruned it. One thing you'll notice with this tree is look how all the fruit is on the bottom. It's on the lower areas, and I did that purposely by design. Like I mentioned, this is a full-size tree, so it could get absolutely huge. What I don't want is all the fruit at the top. So what I do is in the fall, and this is what I did early in the tree, which is one of the reasons why I think it actually produced earlier. Not actually in the fall. In the winter, when this tree is dormant, I cut all the top growth down, all the branches that are going straight up, and I leave only this lower growth. What that does is prevent any of the fruit from the top, because the fruit on the apple trees won't produce fruit on 1-year-old growth. It's only going to produce fruit on older growth and on the fruit spurs. So you'll notice how this comes out right here. That's a fruit spur, so that is where the fruit will be next year. So as long as I just take all this top growth off and keep it relatively low, I can keep the fruit low too. So I did this when the tree was very young, and I think it kind of like stressed the tree out. And you know, it kind of tricked it into flowering early. And since then, it's kind of been flowering for a long time. Because I want to take you over to this other apple tree I have. This one is like 8 years old, and I still haven't had any fruit on it. So I'm trying to prune it, trying to stress it out a little bit, and trying to get some spurs to form. But I don't want to get your hopes up too much, because when it comes to growing apple trees from seed, they could typically like take 7 to 10 years before you actually do get fruit on them. Even though I love my Prigioni apple, I grow it because I have the space to be able to, and I just find it so much fun. If you want to grow apples for the production, I don't suggest you do it from seed. This is probably the worst way to do it if you want it for production. If you want to grow apples because you really want to eat them and you don't have a lot of space, then getting a disease-resistant bare root tree from a reputable company is the best way to do it by far. This right here is only a 4-year-old tree. We've got a lot of apples from it. It's going to remain relatively small, and it's mid-November. So we've been eating apples for like a long time. If you remember, we were getting apples back in August. So from August to mid-November, we're talking 4 months of fresh apples. I mean, you just can't beat that in my opinion. And again, I mentioned how the Prigioni apple has a great flavor. The thing with these is like, these have been domesticated through years to have the best flavor, the best disease resistance, and just be the best overall. So they're very reliable when it comes down to it. Let's cut this open, see what it looks like, and get some taste of the actual flavor of it. Oh yeah, look at the beauty. Look at that, we love to see that. I gotta cut this open, maybe get a quick taste. Tuck verifies it, Tuck approved. Looks like we're good to go. Oh yeah, I mean, the beauty, it's just amazing. Cut this open. There we go. That's what you love to see. Fresh, organic apples right from the tree, mid-November. We just had one of the Prigionis. Now let's taste one of the domesticated Bellas. This one has a little bit of that spreadiness too. But overall, you know, I can't lie, this is better than the Prigioni apple. I love the Prigioni apple, like I said, because it's like something that me and nature made together, and it's like our personal signature. No one else could have it. That's one of the reasons I love doing it so much. So if you want to grow apples for like the mystery, the joy, and like the excitement of not knowing what you're going to get, then definitely grow apple trees from seed. But if you are growing apples just for the production, you want to get the food, I suggest going with the bare root ones. That's today's video, growers. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. Me and Tuck love making this video because we just love sharing our Prigioni apple with everyone. It's like, it's just something that we take pride in. Even if it's not the most beautiful apple or the best tasting, we just still love it so much. We hope you guys got a lot out of this video, and that if you wanted to grow an apple tree from seed and you were, that like this video would encourage you to do so. And then if you were kind of on the fence and you weren't sure and you just wanted production, we hope that this video like opened your eyes and made you realize that the best investment might be, if you want production, to go with like the bare root apples. So that's kind of what we wanted to make it. We found that the Prigioni apple and the apple trees from seed, they may not be your best apples, but they could end up being your favorite ones. And that's kind of what happened with us. Before we let you go though, we want to thank Charles Buckby for your membership to Team Grow. It means a lot to me and the boss that you are willing to give back and to contribute for the value we're creating, and that's like reassuring, and it's a good feeling knowing that you're getting something out of it. And we also want to thank everyone who's giving the super chats too. The fact that you're willing to give it just means a lot to me and the boss. So we're gonna wrapping it up. Tuck's had a great time up here. The boss, the leader, the master are out here. He's just hanging out, enjoying the weather. It's a bit windy, but we're still having a lot of fun and soaking up all the days where it's not freezing. So we want to let you know to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share with your friends. Don't forget to check out the merch down low. And remember, whenever you're on Amazon, start your shopping with our Amazon affiliate link. Tuck, the beast, the master. I like calling him now Big Tuck. And his apprentice James will be back at you again real soon. We